So, some of you may already have a job, and you probably remember the first time that you went to fill out that application, and maybe you weren't sure what to put. Others of you may not have a job, or you may not have even started thinking about getting a job. Well, in this lesson, we're going to talk about the first job, and we're going to talk about what you put on your application and how you fill out an application and the importance of what you put on an application. And whether or not you have a job, you're thinking about getting a job, or that's so far down the road that you haven't even begun to think about it, what you put on a job application is critical. And what you do now and the experiences you have now are important because there's things that you're doing now that you will be able to put on a job application. Even if you're not planning on getting a job right now, you're planning on getting it down the road, there's still things that you can do now that will help you later. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you will be able to put on your application. And it's not just job applications, it's also applications for technical school or for colleges or for the National Honor Society or for volunteer work. There's things that you can do while you're in school that you'll be able to put on those applications. And I want to make sure that you're aware of those opportunities. So that is what we're going to be talking about in this lesson and what you can do to improve your opportunities now so that down the road, when you fill out those applications, you are more likely to get that job or that volunteer work or get into college. This lesson covers a lot of different standards. You can take a moment to read over them. And the desired result for this lesson, by the end of this lesson, you will know how to fill out your first application, whether that be a job application or volunteer application. Although we're also going to talk about some of the things that you might be putting on your college application. So this applies to a lot of different scenarios. We're also going to be talking about how to answer a section even if you have no experience. So what if there is a section that you don't have any experience? What do you put on it? We're going to talk about different kinds of work that can be used under work history. And we're going to talk about the importance of community-based activities. So when you go to fill out an application, they are often going to ask you if you have any experience with community-based activities or volunteer experiences. So let's talk about what those two things are first. Community-based activities can be things like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any sort of religious-based group activities if you belong to any sort of church, synagogue, any sort of religious group. 4-H activities, if you're involved with anything like that, any sort of community-based theater groups, any sort of thing that you do that would give back to the community. Volunteer experiences would count as any sort of thing that you might do, any work that you do without pay. Sometimes this is structured, so you might do something like every Friday, maybe you volunteer at the library or at the local hospital, but it could also be things like helping out a neighbor. So I want you to make sure that you keep your mind open and think, well, what do I do that maybe during the winter you help your neighbor and you shovel snow? So when you're thinking about volunteer experiences, it could be structured, but it could also be things like helping somebody. So, when you're thinking about volunteer, make sure you're brainstorming and maybe asking your parents or someone else to help, you brainstorm so you're not forgetting something that you might be doing. They're also going to ask you about work experiences. And work experiences are paid experiences. And this can be things that are structured, such as things that you might be, hourly, that you're getting like a paycheck to do. Or it can be things that it's more like you're going babysitting, and they might say that you get $20 if you babysit for the evening. And extracurricular activities they might ask about. These are things that you do outside of school. Extracurricular is actually a Latin term. extra meaning on the outside, and curriculum meaning running outside of a course. So the extracurricular meaning outside of school. So anything that you might do outside of school, meaning any sort of sports or clubs. I know some of you are involved in, let's say, soccer, or if you're involved in some sort of group that meets outside of school, that would be an extracurricular activity. So these are common things that you might see on an application that they would ask if you're involved in. So why does this matter? I imagine you're asking yourself, well, why are we spending time talking about this, and why does it matter if I know these things, and why am I putting all this stuff down? So one reason why it matters is if you're thinking about going to college or trade school, having extracurricular activities, having volunteer work, having job experience, colleges look at this and they think that you are a better rounded person if you have other things going on than just school. To them, if it shows that you're able to balance your life. So it is a good idea if you, one, have good grades, but even if your grades aren't perfect, to have some sort of volunteer work, some sort of, a job, some extracurricular activity, something that you're able to show that you have balance to your life and that you're doing something other than just going to school. It can help when you're applying to scholarships. When you apply to a scholarship, they will ask you these things. There will be pages of asking, what are you involved in? If you apply for the National Honor Society, there will be pages where they ask you, what else do you do? What are you doing in your community? So if you are thinking, okay, as I go on through high school, I may apply to these things, it is a good idea now to, even if it is for 2 hours a week, to do something in the community, to do some sort of volunteer work, to, offer to walk your neighbor's dog. To be able to say that you do that will help with being able to put that on your applications. If you want a job, but you don't have any sort of work experience, to be able to say that you have some sort of other experience will put you ahead of other people. And when you do get a job, you are likely to make more money if you have some sort of other experience. So even when you you get your first job, there's tiers of how much money you'll make. And if you're able to say, well, I was doing, something before this, then you'll go up to the next tier and make more money. So anything that you're able to say that you're doing outside of the home or, within the community, even if it is, like I said, 2 hours a week, it is a good idea.